Today, we are going over the 7 most unfair commanders and their decks.
I'm Mia, and I've been watching gambling reels.
I'm BZ. I haven't packed for MagicCon Vegas yet. We're the Nitpicking Nerds, sponsored by Card Kingdom. If you're looking to get any cool stuff post-Vegas, you want to pre-order stuff that is coming up soon, you can go on Card Kingdom and do it all. They are fast, friendly, easy, and they treat everyone nicely.
Final Fantasy, Duskmourn, what all these things have in common? You can find cards from them on Card Kingdom. Go there, use our link, tell them that we sent you. We love you, we love them, it would help us a lot. Keep the lights on here. We're also sponsored by Dragon Shield, best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
If you use the code
NERDS.
At checkout, you can save 5% of your rolling tax dollars on your entire order, which includes all the matte and dual matte sleeves you could ever want in a wide variety of colors and styles.
I'll tell you, real money tax dollars is certainly getting squished further every episode we have. Soon it'll just be, ugh. We are also sponsored by Moxfield, not yet, later sponsor, and Patreon. That's what keeps the lights on. You guys are awesome. Big shout outs to everyone who supports us. You know where to find it if you wanna join them. But today, I want to talk about some unfair commanders. So we're gonna define unfair because it's probably a little bit of a loaded word. In this context, we're using the word unfair to mean commanders that seem to bend or break the spirit of the game once their game plan gets going, sometimes against certain decks in particular, possibly causing their opponents to feel cheated. This is more of a feeling of us, the player who has to face down these commanders, more than like objective truth. We are not saying anyone who plays these commanders is bad. We are not saying anything about these commanders objectively. And I don't even have a problem playing against any of them. It's really just some commanders give me more of a feeling of, oh man, I feel like I'm getting cheated a little bit here. And it's not in like a malicious way.
A lot of these commanders are super cool, and I want to see a bunch of decks about them because they have very like weird little play styles and stuff. But they are very hard to interact with at times, and once they get going, they can be very hard to stop.
I think this first one is like the perfect example. If you roll up against this commander and you're trying to gain life, it's not going to go well for you. Erebos, God of the Dead, is 3 black for a 5/7 with Indestructible. As long as your devotion to black is less than 5, he's not a creature. Your opponents can't gain life, and you can pay 2 mana and 2 life to draw a card. I have sat down against Erebos quite a few times, knowing that I'm like, we're rifling through our stuff. I'm like, I don't think I'll play this deck. And then they go, I think I'll play this deck. And I just go, well, I lose. And I'm not going to I think it's a little weird to change decks knowing that. I think I don't want to get into that territory. But, I show up and I'm like, oh, crap. I'm at a disadvantage. I can't win. I have to kill this thing somehow.
Erebos is super tough. I feel like all of the indestructible gods are pretty tough to play against in their own right, but Erebos just stops all of your opponents from gaining life, and then you also have card draw in it, so it always is refilling, and it's very hard to kill because, even though you have creature exile stuff, you're never going to make sure it's not a creature, so it stays very protected.
That's one way to go. I think a lot of mono black decks just can't help themselves because of cards like Grave Merchant of Asphodel. That cares about big devotion, so you can go big if you want. You can replay Erebos if he really dies. It's not like stopping them from gaining life is like somehow the crux of your game plan. It's just really annoying, and they're going to have to deal with it. It's a very solid thing for you to make them have to jump over to gain life. And also, I respect it because it sort of puts a cap on the game, and it says, the life we have now, that's it. It's kind of like real life.
Yeah, devotion is very easy to get with Gary. And also with Erebos, if you make him a creature, he's just a big boy. He's a 5/7 swinging in. Few hits of that is commander damage just adding up. And Gary's just going to drain your opponents so quickly. I mean, you're mono black, so everything you have is going to be 1 or 2, maybe even 3 black pips, depending on what you're playing. And that is going to add up very quickly.
Grave Merchant is a card historically that does kind of annoy me, but I really can't be mad when you're literally playing a Theros god with this Theros card that is devoted to this Theros god. Like, it all kind of makes sense. Same with Nykthos. I know you got Expedition Map and Demonic Tutor and Vampiric Tutor and World Map in your deck, and you're going to go find this at every given chance. That's fine, but it's something you have to be prepared for against the Erebos deck for sure.
I feel like it's such a threat in all the monocolored decks to begin with, but with all the pips running around with Gary, Erebos, and all the other ones that we're going to mention soon, it's going to add up very quickly. It's not going to be 2 mana and tap that. That's not going to be 3 mana's worth. That's going to be 10 mana's worth. That's going to be 15 mana's worth. And it's also just thematic, so you could always say, no worry, it's just like a Theros thing. Don't worry about
it. It's my Theros deck. I also threw in a Cryptghast, which is 3 black 2/2 with Extort. Whenever you tap a swamp for mana, you get an additional black. Now that we're mono black, we have very few non-swamps. It's just Cabal Coffers and Nykthos. And even then, we can maybe offset it with Cabal Coffers. You know the song and dance.
Or a Borg, there we go.
So now every single one of our lands taps for extra black And that's super relevant. I do have to respect Erebos as the commander for these big mana black decks. You can sort of plug in whatever, but I appreciate that Erebos has a mana sink on it. There's not a ton of mana sinks in the mono black like universe for these commanders, so Erebos is actually a really good fit.
Plus, with Extort, it's so nice to have a little bit of that extra gain and drain because your ability of paying life to draw cards might add up over time if you can't refill your hand, but having that little bit of Extort is very, very nice because usually Extort's on white cards.
Yeah, this all kind of works together in a nice way. And what are we ramping to? Well, probably Torment to Hailfire. Let's not get too fancy. X black, black sorcery. Repeat the following process X times, which I think is one of the most badass opening lines to a sorcery because it like gives you no context. You're like, wait, what's about to happen? Each opponent loses 3 unless they discard a card or sacrifice a non-land permanent of their choice. If you cast this for, I don't know, 12 to 15, there's really no choice.
It always hurts so badly, and I think it's very thematic to Nicol Bolas. Not that I follow the story too much, but with him just coming in and just raining destruction, it's very fitting for that storyline. And who doesn't love Underworld Dreams? Dinging people for drawing cards? Well, you're just going to ding them for everything, and their life is going to go down very fast.
This is sort of an alternate route you could go with Erebos. I mean, it is great for Devotion. It works for Grey Merchant, Nykthos, Erebos, that stuff. But it kind of is like, if you want to go the emphasis on no life gain, that's a very important line of text if you want to play Group Slug, if you want to play cards that dish out damage over the course of the game, because if we know that they're maxing out at 40, some of these damage dealers get a lot better.
Yeah, I really like Underworld Dreams, and I like the fact that you can take it in multiple routes, because Erebos is pretty open-ended. It's just like, hey, how do you want to build me? Because I'm giving you card advantage, and your opponents can't gain life, and that really hinders a lot of people.
Right, like you don't need life gain, but if you have life gain in your deck, well, that offsets my ability, and you can pay my 1 and a black cost more. Also, that offsets that ability, the Meathook Massacre. This is so perfect because it's going to act as a little bit of a wipe for the 1 and 2 power or toughness creatures, get them off the field, and then give you some residual life gain. And if you can even go the sacrifice route to pay off this more, but you don't have to, it drains them or dings them when you have creatures die.
I mean, Meathook is so good. It's helping you with your devotion. It's going to help just be a static, just very nice effect.
Annoying.
Yeah, and you're going to be able to replenish that life that you're losing from using Erebos' effect, because let's be real, you're going to use it at least a couple times.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's right there. You gotta just...
It's pretty cheap, you know?
It's like the cookie jar. It's not even protected. There's not even a lid on it. You just... I mean, I'll take 1. There's like 100 in there. No one will notice.
And there's Necrogen Mist in here. 2 and a black for enchantment. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player discards a card.
If you're feeling nasty.
We just want to hurt everyone here.
If you're feeling nasty and you want to go like the resource denial route, that does also pair well with no life gain. It means they're on a shorter clock and they have less resources to dig out from it. And now they're like, oh, maybe I did have an answer for Erebos, but I have to discard it because otherwise I'm going to miss a land drop this turn. And it helps Erebos really stick around. This is definitely a deck that can just change my entire outlook on a game before we even start. I love
so
Erebos.
nasty.
But also, one of my favorite arts.
But let's move on to a Selesnya commander. It's Sigarda, Host of Herons, 2 green, white, 5/5, flying, hexproof. Spells and abilities your opponent's control can't cause you to sacrifice permanents. That is sometimes, like, that's definitely pretty nasty, especially when you're playing things like Soul Shatter, or you're playing the Blasphemous Edicts and all of that.
It's funny because that line of text is not very relevant until you pair it with hexproof. Hexproof definitely turns the whole answer, question, answer format of like, here's a threat, can you kill it, on its head, because it's like, no, you actually can't. And one of the ways around that would be sacrificing. If, the Sigarda is unprotected on their board, maybe you could fire off a Fleshbag Marauder, but it just doesn't work. So it definitely, I think, if you're playing an honest-to-goodness fair deck and you are trying to play a Doomblade and kill something, you're going to feel cheated. And it's one of those cases where it's not like, the Sigarda player did anything wrong. It's just like, hey, sometimes life's not fair, kid.
It's pretty nasty. It's, it has evasion with flying. It's already a big boy, and we're going to pair that with things like Armadillo Cloak, 1 white green for an aura, and you're going to pick Sigarda, of course. Gets +2/+2, and trample, get those Thopters out of the way. Whenever it deals damage, you gain that much life. Pseudo lifelink, that's really nice.
If I had to make a short checklist for what I could want on top of my unkillable 5/5 flyer, I would say, well, I really don't want to get it chump blocked. I mean, come on. And I know that I'm going to be the threat on the board because I keep swinging with this Haymaker. So maybe if I could have some way to offset all of the damage I'm going to take on the backswing. Oh, cool. Not only does it do that, but the weird functionality of Armadillo Cloak is it is not lifelink. So if you give Sigarda lifelink and have an Armadillo Cloak on it and you hit for 7, you'll gain 14 life.
That is so nice. Also, Sigarda, just better version of the Archangel.
Oh, my dude. Imperial Archangel? Look,
sorry, dude.
Yeah, okay, Sigarda puts that card to shame. It has the same amount of power, too, for like 3 less mana. Sorry, Imperial Archangel, but Sigarda, especially with Armadillo Cloak, is ridiculous. And Sigarda is somewhat open-ended. She wants to be Voltron a little bit. I mean, I think that's where most decks go, but do you want counters? Do you want equipment? Do you want auras? If you want auras, you're probably on the Sithis Harvest Hand route, where you cast enchantments, gain a life, draw a card, and you've got a bunch of Wild Growths and Utopia Sprawls, and you build out your board that way, and your deck does nothing except suit up Sigarda, who will get all of the dirty work done.
If you're playing Enchantress, Sithis is going to be in the 99 or your commander. Either way, it's just so much value because it comes down so cheaply. There's also Kutzel, Malamet Exemplar. It basically says that your opponents can't cast spells during your turn, which is very nice. Also, whenever one or more creatures you control, each with power greater than its base power, deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. You're going to be suiting up Sigarda in one way or another to begin with, so this just says draw a card and they can't cast spells during your turn.
So few things can go wrong when you attack with Sigarda, but just to add your opponents can't cast spells during your turn, just to add that extra layer of safety, really, that's got to like be almost like a BM to your opponent. Like, what was I supposed to do anyway? But I think it is nice to have that protection if they're playing like a random like Aetherize, or they're trying to get some kind of instant speed shenanigans. Nope, sorry.
Honestly, I like Kutzel a lot. I didn't really respect it as much because when it came out, it was just like kind of a budget card. It was just a throwaway in LCI, but it was so good. When I saw it in your CEDH deck, and then I've just seen it in the wild, it's a really good card.
It has a lot of text on it. It's all relevant. But now your biggest worry with Sigarda, that she's ridiculously huge, is the only thing that kills her now is some kind of mass removal, mass board wipe, mass damage dealer, or like a farewell, all modes. That's kind of the scary stuff. That's why we have Clever Concealment to phase her out, which just gets around everything. There is no board wipe printed in Magic that can stop a phasing.
Clever Concealment is so good. You could just keep it up for free, and if you have a bunch of little other guys, you could just
like
convoke
your
them.
And your Kutzel.
It's just so easy to be able to hold that up, and it's like, okay, farewell modes. No, in response, none of my stuff will be here. Maybe my graveyard gets phased out. That's fine.
Like you'll lose some stuff, and it also is worth noting that if anything is attached to Sigarda and you phase it out, that also gets phased out. Although it is irrelevant now that I'm mentioning it with Clever Concealment, because you could just phase out anything anyway. But that transitions into equipment. It was a segue into Sword of Feast and Famine. 3-mana equipment. It gets +2/+2 protection from black and from green, and whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, they discard a card, and you untap all lands you control. So it kind of is like borderline take an extra turn, but it's tough to get through sometimes, except when we have a flampling monster like Sigarda.
Just watch out, because if you are going the enchantment route, it does have pro green, and it might be very hard to equip.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't throw Armadillo Cloak and Sword of Feast and Famine on Sigarda at the same time. These are just different offshoots of the Sigarda deck. And I think one way to go, too, is Power Matters. Since we're Voltroning, let's get a Rishkar's Expertise in there.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Draw 10, cast a 5-drop for free?
Yeah, Rishkar's Expertise. It doesn't matter that it's 6 mana, because you're in green, you're going to be rampant anyways, in one way or another. And then you're going to have this gigantic creature swinging through the air, dealing a bunch of damage. Oh, you also just happen to get a free spell and a ton of cards out of it. That's awesome.
And I had to mention our obligatory MDFC for the day, Strength of the Harvest. It's so good here. This feels like it was custom made for this. It's white, green, and 2 for an aura that enchants creature and gives it +1/+1 for each creature and or enchantment you control. So if you go the Boggles route, or you just go creature route, it's going to give like +6/+6, but it's a green-white tap land on the other side, so it is a 100% auto-include slam dunk.
And it doesn't exclude the creature you're equipping it to, or itself, too. So
it's always +2, yeah.
Yeah, bare minimum, it's always +2, and you're always going to have a little bit more extra.
Yeah, so Sigarda will definitely take these fair removal decks and make them want to cry, for sure.
Up next is Flubs the Fool. He's my little frog buddy. He's green, blue, red for a 0/5. You can play an additional land on each of your turns. Whenever you play a land or cast a spell, you draw a card if you have no cards in hand. Otherwise, you discard a card.
Flubs probably doesn't look that intimidating. I mean, his name basically just means blunder, right?
Yeah.
I wish I could just give him a hug. I hope he's doing
so
okay.
He's so cute. I love him.
Flubs doesn't look like much, but when I list the very first card, you're going to have some idea of what we're talking about here when we talk about unfair, or things feeling unfair or stacked against you. Maybe like you didn't have a chance in the first place. How about Bonesaw? It's a 0-mana equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+0, and it equips for 1. It just is a Magic the Gathering spell that has no mana cost. So this entire deck, I think I'm going to highlight one possible deck of Flubs that I want to highlight for this video is the Cheerios deck. Cheerios referencing all of the little circles in the mana value of all of the 0-mana spells you're playing. You stack your deck full of zeros so you can constantly, with Flubs, play a 0 as the last card in your hand, and then draw a card, which is probably a 0, and you just keep going. And it's going to churn through its entire deck, often in one turn, sometimes the same turn you've played Flubs. And if you're sitting from the other side, you just go, oh, I wasn't aware that you had that in you, Flubs.
Flubs comes down so fast, and because it's the Cheetos deck, you are very well knowledgeable about the fact that all of these like little things like Mishra's Bauble, one of your favorites, 0 mana for an artifact, tap, sack it, look at the top card of target player's library, draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. As BZ like to say, this is air.
This is air. Air to us means that you play it for nothing, and you get something out of it. Anything like that is air, and Flubs turns all of these different cards into air. You do have to play a little bit of a risky game. You're going to go empty-handed on this, and if somebody interacts with you, well, this isn't going to be your game. But if somebody doesn't, they're going to feel maybe like, you kind of snuck one past them. Mox Amber is great in this deck. It's a 0 mana artifact, taps for a color of your legends. So you play Flubs, and then you're going to, like, at some point in your little combo, hit Mox Amber, go, cool, I'm now +1 mana, so I have more access to stuff.
Song of Creation is going to let you churn through even faster. It is 4 mana for an enchantment. You can play an additional land. Whenever you cast a spell, you draw 2. Beginning of your end step, discard your hand. But you're going to be drawing lands some percentage of the time. You want to get rid of them.
I mean, this card's ridiculous with Flubs. Now you are just in card draw heaven. Your zeros draw 3. Sometimes you have to discard with Flubs. There's ways around that. One way around that is Iruth. This, to me, makes the whole deck into just like an absolute machine. Iruth is a 3 mana 2/4 that says if you would draw a card, instead you exile the top 2 cards of your library and you can play them this turn. This ensures you are always empty-handed with Flubs, but you always get, Flub is someone else, but you always get both 2 cards out of it. It's just crazy. It's like the best card in this deck, probably.
No, I really want to see that. And if you bring stuff in your graveyard to begin with, why don't we just put 6 in there too? 2 green for a 2/4 reach. When it attacks, mill 3, blah, 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 blah. During your turn, non-land permanent cards you're in your graveyard have retrace. Let's get rid of those lands and actually put them to good work.
Now, every time we draw a land, it's actually a redraw. If our hand is empty and we draw a land off of a trigger from a Bonesaw or something, their only card in hand is like Forest. We go, okay, using Retrace, I will cast Bonesaw from my graveyard, discarding this Forest. I have no cards in my hand, so I draw a card, and I'm back to where I started. Every land is a reset as long as you have a 0 in there, but something like Mishra's Bubble always sacrifices itself, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, Mishra's Bubble already getting another shout from BZ in this,
Same deck.
And this commander isn't even over.
Same deck.
What are you going to do when you've turned through the entire deck? Well, you're going to win with Laboratory Maniac. 2 and a blue for a 2/2. If you draw a card when your library has no cards in it, you win the game.
That's pretty solid. I mean, that's just a very fitting end. I think it's more fitting than Thassa's Oracle. That to me is like
boring.
It's not on Flubs' level. Flubs is playing Bonesaw, so I think he wants Laboratory Maniac. I think they would get along.
Yeah, he's not playing like I wish I could be playing Demonic Consultation right now. It's like, hey.
Does Flubs look like he has the capacity for that?
No, he looks like I want to play 20 Bonesaws.
Like, he's doing this accidentally. He's opening his bag of tricks, and you just go, oh, I'm dead.
Oh, whoa. Is that 4 Mishra's Baubles?
But I do love the fact that against this deck, you sit down and you realize you were disadvantaged from the start and you had no chance. We're going to move to a different type of combo, probably one that people would find less endearing. It's AC, Tyrant of Gyre Strait. It's a 6 mana 5/5 that says you can play an additional land on each of your turns, and then whenever a land enters under your control, you draw a card.
That is very nasty, and there's a reason that this card was so high in price for so long. It was only a pre-con card for a hot minute until it got a reprint.
Yeah, this card does border on unfair if you've ever seen the AC player untap with this or play AC with a bunch of mana up. It kind of feels like they're just going to take a 10-minute turn and you needed to have something, but you didn't.
Exploration. One of the ways you're going to be getting a ton of lands out, you can play an additional land on each of your turns. Play this turn 1 and you get turn 2.
It's the scariest play from this deck. I honestly, whenever I see Exploration out of AC, I just go, oh, okay, so my timeline is like, cut that in half on what turn I should be expecting to die.
You're going to be spitting out so many lands with this deck. You're going to be drawing more cards, spitting out more lands. It's going to be this never-ending cycle.
Well, when ramp equals card draw, your deck can get pretty busted, and this deck is going to prioritize having lands enter untapped. I mean, I also just want to shout out good old-fashioned Misty Rainforest. When you play it and sack it, that's 2 triggers off AC, gives you 2 more cards, which could potentially contribute to more landfall triggers, and it just goes off from there. Not much to say about Misty, but it is a crucial part of this deck, alongside Harrow, which is it's like an okay ramp spell, but the fact that it puts 2 lands out and they're untapped means AC eats that all day.
Yeah, 2 extra cards, 2 lands, and then if you get any other landfall triggers too, in which there are a lot in Magic, you will be getting a lot of value.
There's plenty to have. I mean, there's just Scoot Swarms and your Nantuko Spring Hearts, but we're going to talk about a little combo called Crucible of Worlds, which lets you play lands from your graveyard, and Azusa, Lost But Seeking. That's both cards. I guess we'll just combine them. She says you can play 2 additional lands on each of your turns. So with that aforementioned Misty Rainforest, now we can keep fetching over and over, and every single time we do, we're drawing 2 cards off of AC.
And we can be playing a lot of the fetches, whether you're playing in a more budget version like the Obscura and Brokers
Hideout,
and all of those, or you're playing, the full suite of fetches that you can actually play.
Totally.
There's a lot of options there.
There's even like the budget side of Crucible with like ramming up excavators like $1.
Yeah. Arixmathes, the Slumbering Isle, is going to be a gigantic boy. He's going to tap for a ton of mana too. He's going to enter tapped with 5 slumber counters on it for 4 mana. As long as a slumber counter, it's a land, and you could choose one to take those off. Whenever you cast a spell, you may remove a slumber counter, and you could tap them to add green and blue.
This is a great play to ramp into AC if you play it on turn 4. That already gives you 6 mana for when you untap on turn 5. So you can play AC, then follow it up with your 2 land drops, some of which may be fetches, to draw a bunch of cards. And then you don't care too much if AC dies because you ramped a little and you drew a little, but you could still follow it up with more stuff. And one of my favorite parts about Arixmathes is that, like you said, it's may remove counters. So I always remove, leave it at 1, wait till a board wipe, and then just play any spell, remove the last, and hit somebody for 12. It works like every time.
It's a really big creature. You either can tap it for 2, which is already great for a land, or it becomes a 12/12 mana dork that you can just also hit someone if you really want.
Look, at that point, mana dork is...
12/12 mana dork. It's an option.
I'm going to have trouble passing up on 12 damage, but if people have blockers, give me the mana. All right, we've assembled our nonsense. We've got a million lands. Our turn never seems to end, and let's go ahead and fire off a Hullbreaker Horror. 5 blue for a 7/8 flash, can't be countered. Whenever you cast a spell, you can choose one. Return target spell you don't control to its owner's hand, or return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. This is protection for your stuff. This is removal for their stuff, or bounce. Their spells aren't going to resolve. There are worlds where you can take infinite actions and cast infinite spells, thanks to our boy Hullbreaker Horror along something like a Soul Ring. Having access to half your deck in your hand helps enable these things.
Hullbreaker Horror, always one of the nastiest things a blue-esque deck can whip out.
Oh yeah, always watch out for the AC player. Whenever they untap with AC, honestly, you're probably dead. That's why there's so much pressure to kill it, because if not, you're going to realize they're not going to win. You're just going to concede eventually.
I mean, they have so much mana at that point. They're going to be playing extra lands every single turn. They're going to be able to break out Hullbreaker and another gigantic thing. And then it's going to be just a big chain of like, I can deploy threats faster than you. I can counter your stuff, and you're going to lose.
Once you show me that you have 4 extra land drops you haven't taken yet, and you've got a Arixmathes and Tatyova in play, I might just ask the rest of the table if we're good, if we want to go to the next game, because that's fine too.
I think that's very fair. Up next is a new commander. It's Deadpool, trading card, 2 red/black for a 5/3. As he enters, you can exchange his text box and another creature's. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 3 life, pay 3, sack the creature. Each other player draws a card. Deadpool can feel so unfair because these decks are often going to make a ton of copies of him, and then they're just going to systematically take all of the text boxes of everything else on the field, which is going to take all of your best stuff, and you're going to be getting a lot of life lost just by them copying Deadpool's little triggers.
Yeah, and the problem is a lot of your creatures are just going to be stranded. They're going to take away the text box of your commander, the thing you built your whole deck around, and you're not going to get it back. There's no way to switch them back. You have to get rid of the actual creature and then recast it or flicker it or something, because that text box is on Deadpool now. It's just... It can definitely feel like they're just playing an entirely different made-up game, but all of these rules kind of were in place already, and that's why Deadpool like confused a lot of people. They're like, this is a card we can do? But they printed Exchange of Words back in...
Yeah, that was one of my favorites.
Is that Unstable?
No, it was
Infinity.
Infinity. And that was a super awesome card, but it was so nasty because it's like, oh, well, I guess I have to kill my creature, but it's not like killing your creature or whatever switches the text box back. It's just like, oh no, they're just stuck like that. But I do like the fact that bare minimum you can pay with Deadpool's like ability to get rid of your creature to replay it. It just feels really bad that everyone else draws a card too.
Yeah, I mean they're gonna make it hard for you.
Yeah.
So Deadpool has a lot of weird rulings around it. Attack on Cardboard actually made a pretty extensive video if you want to go check that out to see everything Deadpool can and cannot do. But one thing to note is that even if you switch the text box with something else, if you flicker him or make a token of him or give him Myriad or something, the new Deadpools enter just as the card as printed. So with Saw in half, 2 and a black instant, you're going to destroy Deadpool. If that creature dies this way, its controller creates 2 tokens that are copies of Deadpool, except their power is half and their toughness is half. Round up each time. So you're going to get 2 more Deadpools as they enter, not when they enter, as they enter, switch those text boxes. One of the Deadpools, a couple of them maybe die to legend rule, depending on how many Deadpools you have. But then you're just nuking people's creatures, and you give them this bad text box they don't want.
Yeah, all of these tokens are going to add up over time because losing 3 life, maybe not that bad if you have 1 instance of that. But if you have like 5 or 6, because they're going to just be turbo copying Deadpool, that's going to add up over time. But of course you're going to want to kill Deadpool, but don't worry because they've already thought of that. Not dead after all, and all of these little spells is really going to help with that. Black for an instant until end of turn, target creature you control gets wherever this creature dies, return a battlefield tapped under its owner's control, then create a wicked roll attached to it. Basically, it's just going to go, no, don't worry about it. It'll come back, and then we will also take another one of your text boxes.
Yeah, I was really hoping you were going to say not Deadpool after all. So I'm like a little let down, but
okay.
I'll take it. Not
Sorry.
that after all, and any of these are very solid additions. It makes it so that even if you just have a little sack outlet on the side, you just get more Deadpools, and that's kind of all this deck is. It's a little repetitive, but it definitely gets the job done. And if you're going to have all this sacrifice and destroy nonsense, and they're trying to sacrifice their own creatures because they're killing them, throw a Blood Artist in. Whenever a creature dies, somebody gets drained by 1.
Hi, Miso.
Oh, hey, buddy. How's it going? You gonna help us do the review here? Do you want to tell him about the Master Multiplied?
Don't worry, he can't read, but I can. The Master Multiplied is 4 black-red for a 4/3 with Myriad. The legend rule doesn't apply to creature tokens you control, and triggered abilities can't cause you to sacrifice or exile creature tokens you control. So, when you make multiple copies of Deadpool, because you're really going to want to do that, you're going to have all these copies so you actually keep all of the cool effects you're stealing from your opponents.
Right, and you can also play the Master Multiplied first, then Deadpool second, switch the text boxes, so now Deadpool has Myriad. Even though Deadpool has the Master Multiplied's text, you will also have Myriad, which will create 2 Deadpools without the Master Multiplied's text. Is this making sense? And you're going to get to swap more text boxes.
You're going to be dinging yourself a little bit, but 3 life is a small price to pay to be able to do stuff. We also just want to have a few cheap things that have Myriad so you can make more copies very easily. Dalek Squadron is going to be an awesome way to do that. 3 mana, Menace, Myriad. The Myriad is just really important because you could play it first, and then you play Deadpool, and then swap the text boxes.
Yep, turn 4, you've got the complete engine online, and if you want to wait a turn at turn 5, then you have the backup of like not Deadpool after all, and it's perfect. You can throw in a Molten Duplication to just get a 2 mana hasty copy of Deadpool. But if you've got some of the other stuff going on with this deck, you maybe don't have to sacrifice the token. So that's just a 2 mana Deadpool, which is also removal spells. This deck might get to barely play any removal just because creatures are almost unusable against this.
Don't worry if you already have a creature that is pretty bad. You could just have Deadpool come in as a copy of it, and it will already take care of the problem.
We are like heavily taxing these big beefy creatures decks, and any deck that really can't do much without its commander. I mean, good luck.
But Deadpool isn't always a copy deck. Sometimes people just want to play it as chaos, which is why you're playing things like Zancha's Sleeper Agent. When black-red 5/5 enters under an opponent's control, it attacks each combat able, can attack the owner's stuff, and pay 3. Zancha's controller loses 2 life, you draw a card, any player can activate this ability. So if you just want to cause a little bit of chaos, swap some text boxes, you don't want to go ham on the copies, you can just throw in some chaos cards too.
I think that's what Deadpool would want.
No, he definitely would want that.
He would totally sign up for some chaos. So we know that Deadpool is very good at taxing 1 creature at a time, sometimes 2 at a time. Watch out for your big boys, but if you've got a bunch of small boys and you're trying to play the game, you're going to maybe have a tough time against Toxrill the Corrosive, 5 black 7/7. At the beginning of each end step, put a slime counter on each creature you do not control. Creatures you don't control get -1/-1 for each slime counter on them. Whenever a creature you don't control with a slime counter on it dies, you get a 1/1 black slug, and you can pay blue and a black and sacrifice a slug to draw a card. Don't you just love it when your commander has 4 relevant abilities that just all feed into each other?
They all chain together. I think it's pretty interesting that you remove Toxrill, the slime counters don't go away. You bring Toxrill back, they're still on there, so they will still stack up and still count as -1/-1 counters when he comes back.
Yes, it's a unique type of counter. Not in the way that it stays, but it's a unique type of counter to keep track of. Maybe that's a little annoying for you. But yeah, Toxrill will just take these token decks and, I don't know, just shred them. Just shred them continuously. If you don't answer Toxrill, life's not going to seem very fair.
We're going to want to get Toxrill out as soon as possible to get this effect online, which is why we're playing things like Dark Ritual black for an instant to add 3 black. We want to get them out as soon as possible, and so even as early as like turn 4 or something, you have some other pieces of ramp, you're going to slap them down and everyone's going to be real sad.
Yeah, you're fine running out Cabal Rituals and Dark Rituals. Just get this thing on the battlefield because it's a permanent board wipe that also gives you a board state. So even if, you kill a bunch of stuff and then Toxrill eventually dies, you got like 7 slugs out of it. Now you get chump blockers until you get Toxrill back out.
And Massacre Girl Known Killer is going to be awesome in here because it's 2 black for a 4/4 with Menace. Creatures you control have Wither, not that important. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, if its toughness was less than 1, draw a card. Well,
what about 0?
Yeah, Toxrill is going to always make sure that happens, and so you're going to be getting a bunch of cards. Like, it wasn't enough cards to sack slugs and pay to get cards too.
Yeah, now we can actually just skip that part, keep the slugs as chump blockers, and then whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, yeah, we'll just draw a card off of it. It also means you can start running slugs into people with less fear because it just makes their creature that much smaller, and you know how many slime counters are on it already, so you can run it in and say, do you want to trade for this slug and draw me a card? I don't think so.
And also make another slug.
Yeah, and just give me the slug back. This is absolutely nasty. I also appreciate that this is a card you can play pretty safely and not worry too much about it, drawing all that much hate. But you play Massacre Girl on turn 4, and you can reasonably build up to Toxrill, play it after, and then have them work in conjunction.
I mean, I feel like in a Toxrill deck to begin with, every card is a big threat. When you're playing things like Massacre Girl or Maha, It's Feathers Knight, it's going to be very scary. 3 black for a 6/5 flying trample, ward, discard a card because everything is ward now. Creatures your opponents control have base toughness 1, so just 1 end step means that all of your opponent's creatures are going to die.
Another thing that you can play before Toxrill, play Toxrill the next turn, and now it's a Plague Wind. Everything's dead and you get that many slugs, and they still got Toxrill and Maha to contend with, and it kind of means that if they don't answer one of those 2 things, they just cannot play creatures. It's just not a thing they can do.
But one of my favorite cards, just in general lately, but especially in here, is Dreamtide Whale. 2 and a blue for a 7/5 with Vanishing 2. Doesn't really matter that much. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, you're going to proliferate. You're going to be proliferating this thing's counters so it never leaves. You're going to be proliferating everyone's slime counters so that everything dies twice as fast. And then you're going to be getting slugs off of it, or cards if you have Massacre Girl. This is gigantic too. 3 mana. This is like an awesome turn 3 play.
Yeah, also since, I don't know if I mentioned this, Toxrill has that blue-black ability, meaning it is a blue color identity in addition to black. So you've got all the counter spells in the world to back this thing up so that now they can't remove Toxrill as easily. And with Dreamtide Whale, it's like, okay, well, I don't need to advance my board state. Maybe I'll play some mana rocks. Like, no, if you do that, your creatures die faster. And they're going to die anyway. And I'm going to get slugs off of it. It does feel kind of hopeless.
I feel like with Dreamtide Whale, it's so tough to not feed into it. What are you going to do? Just play Battle Cruiser Magic? Because you're not going to be able to keep up with any of the other stuff, especially 100%. With what the Toxrill player is doing at that point.
Yeah, and then let's go ahead and make it even worse for them. Let's throw in a Yawgmoth, Thran Physician, all those extra slugs we're getting, ammunition to throw them at your creatures to kill them even ahead of schedule and get more slugs off of it, which throw at future creatures. It's unbelievable.
See, I don't even mean that, because not only can you do that, you can also just discard cards to proliferate. So if you want to wipe the board a little bit faster, he's already got you covered on that too.
Yeah, so you can individually machine gun down 1 toughness creatures almost for free at only the cost of 1 life. Or, like you said, pay 2 mana and pitch a card to shrink everything across the board.
Yeah. And you don't even need to wait for the end step, because this will already put the -1 counter on it, and then you could start proliferating. So if it's like 2 or 3, you proliferate a couple times, you sack a slug, and then you will get just a big board back. You know?
Probably my favorite one that you put on here is Asinine Antics. It's so funny.
It's so cool.
2 blue for a sorcery that you can cast at instant speed if you pay 2 more. So treat this like 4 blue if you want it at instant speed. For each creature your opponents control, create a curse roll token attached to them, which alters their base power toughness to be 1/1. So you can have as many creatures as you want. They've got 1 slime counter, and their opponents are like, okay, we're under pressure, but I got something next turn, don't worry. And you go like, actually, Asinine Antics.
It's just so perfect for this deck. It's a great way to be able to just clear the board instantly in just 1 end step. This is awesome.
Also another card that I really appreciate that's helpful for the curve, and it makes this deck scarier. You can play it before Toxrill, or you can play it after for the same efficacy, because if you fire it off end step turn 6, untap turn 7, play Toxrill, they're not going to have anything to do, and the turn's just going to end, and they get that 1 crucial slime counter, and they just all die, and you just get 12 slugs, and they're just like feeling terrible about themselves.
The slugs are going to be gigantic, or not, like you're just going to have a gigantic board of slugs at that point.
It's gross.
But if you didn't want to win with gigantic amounts of slugs or just killing all of your stuff, why not Revel in Riches too? 4 and a black for enchantment. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you create a treasure token. That's awesome for mana production. Beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you just win.
That's going to be I mean, again, if we play it before Toxrill, we start accumulating them. That gives us mana to back up Toxrill or the Revel with counterspells so that we can continuously just fuel it. And honestly, with this deck, getting 10 treasures just seems like easy. Just walk in the park.
You get that in one end step, but if for some reason they kill it or something, okay, I guess I just have like 10 treasures just lying around.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is it'll leave behind all the money, the booty, and you don't have to worry about missing out on the whole thing. You got half the card is the mana production, and the other half is a must-answer threat that we don't even really care. I honestly probably wouldn't even care if they answered this. I'm just like, hey, here's a lightning rod, but Toxrill's in play, and I have 8 treasures. Like,
yeah, it's like, what do you want to kill at that point?
You just can't win. You're just dead, and that's part of the unfairness of Toxrill. It might feel hopeless for these rabbit decks. If you're playing like Heir Apparent, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about the Toxrill player. That brings us to quite possibly the most unfair feeling Magic card I've ever played with or against. It's one of my favorites in 1v1, and it is also very fun in Commander. We've got Emrakul, the Promised End. If you want unfair, just keep reading. 13 mana for a 13/13, but it costs 1 less to cast for each card type among cards in your graveyard. When you cast this spell, you gain control of target opponent during that player's turn. After that turn, that player takes an extra turn and has flying, trample, and protection from instants. It is a gigantic monster. Part of the fun of this, or the unfairness, what qualifies it for this video is it is always accessible. It is practically guaranteed that you're going to get to mind control somebody for their entire turn. And there are so many weird niche interactions in Magic that I think do feel like genuinely unfair. Even I'm not saying the rules should change, but it just feels icky when Emrakul says, when you're being controlled by somebody and they Swords to Plowshares your commander, and since they're acting as you're acting, in accordance with whatever they want, you just put that commander in exile. No, we don't need to send it back to the command zone. It's just in exile forever. That to me is like the epitome of, oh my God, what is... Ew.
There's so many nasty things. It's just like, oh yeah, I'll take a look at your hand. I'll draw, the rest of your deck. I'll get rid of your best cards.
I'll search my library, fail to find.
Yeah, it's just so disgusting. And Emrakul is just one of those commanders. You're like, oh, you're playing that, but we're going to want to cast it for not 13 mana. So we're going to want to fill our graveyard with a ton of different card types. One of them being enchantment. Now we're in colorless, so
that's kind of tough.
But we're going to be playing Urza's Saga for that. It is a 3 lore counter saga. The first one says the saga gains tap to add colorless. Second is it gains 2 tap, create a construct, or 3 search your library for an artifact with mana cost 0 or 1, probably Soul Ring if I had to guess, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. It's going to sack, it's going to go to your graveyard, and that's going to be 1 less reduction, or 1 more reduction. There we go.
2 more reduction, because it's a land.
Ooh, that is very juicy.
It's just like the perfect card, because like you said, enchantments are so hard to come by in colorless, especially good ones that like do stuff. So and the fact that this sacrifices itself too. We don't even have to do anything. We don't have to mill it. Even if we just play it, it goes away, and it also is going to find a mana positive rock, like you said, Soul Ring, or like Mana Vault, even to just ramp into Emrakul even sooner. Part of what makes Emrakul so backbreaking is you don't have to do anything. I don't even know if you have to put win cons in this deck. If your opponents are playing combos and you can assemble that from their board state, you combo out and then you just kill that player, leaving yourself, the Emrakul caster, alive.
Yeah, I'll play Thoracle as a 2/2 and then pass as if you're...
Or yeah, you can snub their other stuff. You really like Thoracle. That comes Thoracle on the brain.
Thoracle is just I think it's one of the most iconic cards of Magic with like Soul Ring and Rhystic Study. I just think that it's one of those cards that people think about and they go, like Thoracle,
I often go...
But I feel like we were doing some research for this. On EDH Rec, there's no suggestions for this, and I think you should be playing Mesmeric Orb in this deck. 2 mana for an artifact. Whenever a permanent becomes untapped, that permanent's controller mills a card. It's good for you because you want to have as many card types as possible in your graveyard. So you want to get those lands and those, all of the types. You're playing all of the different card types to make sure you try and get all of them. But also, I've got so much hate for this card just by people playing against it and like, well, I didn't want to do that. It's like
scary.
Okay, well, this was for me mostly, but good thing you also didn't like that.
Hey, if they get too greedy and they make too much crap, they start getting milled and they have to respect the Mesmeric Orb. But as soon as we get to mill 6 cards with it, we go, I don't care. Great. Whatever happens, the rest is bonus. I just put, a planeswalker, a creature, an artifact in my graveyard. So now Emrakul costs 3 less. And I'm happy about that. And it's just going to keep fueling it over and over. And it's one of those setup cards that I feel like if I'm playing Emrakul, I Am I really trying to get to 13 before I'm trying to just mill 10 cards?
No, I'm trying to get to like 5 mana total, and I'm trying to have a bunch of different types in my graveyard.
I think realistically, 8 mana is an acceptable goal, because that means you have 5 types in the graveyard. Instant sorcery, well, let's say for this deck, because normally Delirium is instant and sorcery, but again, colorless, that's kind of hard to make happen. So realistically, artifact, creature, land, and then either instant or sorcery, and then like a planeswalker. Totally doable if we mill a couple, but people aren't playing. I mean, get Codex Strider in your deck. Get Ghoul-Caller's Bell. They're rituals. They reduce Emrakul.
And you're playing like the Mishra's Baubles of the world, the Urza's Baubles.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure to get those artifacts in there, too.
Totally. Kind of a no-brainer, but let's go ahead and throw Eldrazi Temple in here. It just makes 2 mana. It's just Ancient Tomb for Emrakul and maybe some other stuff. I think you could go an Eldrazi route, but I'm not really going to be... We're not discussing this as an Eldrazi deck. This is the unfair deck. We're just going to resolve Emrakul the Promised End and show you just how backbreaking that always is.
I mean, there's so many little Scions, too, that will make mana, so you could go more of like a Scion ramping route and then also do that. But Eldrazi is usually feeling unfair to begin with. Emrakul is probably the queen of that. Yeah. So we're going to also be playing instants and sorceries in here too. Kind of hard to come by, but not this one. Not of this world. 7 mana for an instant. Counter target spell or ability that targets a permanent you control. And people are going to be trying to target your stuff a lot. But the spell costs 7 less if it targets a spell or ability that targets a creature you control with power 7 or greater. Good thing Emrakul is 13/13.
Yes, it's probably not even that likely that Emrakul is going to be targeted by something, but maybe like a Solitude trigger, because Emrakul's got protection from instants, but there's other stuff that could take her out. But part of the awkwardness of playing against Emrakul is like, you gonna kill it? I'm going to cast it next turn, and then I'm going to take control of somebody else. Whoever's in second place is about to become last place or die. One of the other things we haven't even mentioned with Emrakul that definitely feels unfair is if you have any way to pay life, if you have a Necropotence in play and I steal your turn with Emrakul, congratulations, you just lost.
That is
after dealing as much damage to my opponents as you can.
That's just so juicy. But yeah, I feel like in these decks, you're not just ramping to Emrakul. There's also just like, I usually see a couple other Eldrazi Titans running around, and Not of This World is going to be great for that.
Totally. But it definitely protects all of your nonsense.
Yeah, you're going to be swinging in, too, because it's gigantic, it has flying, it has trample. You're going to be able to do that 2-hit KO with your commander. Commander's Plate is also going to give it protection from every single color, and it's going to come down pretty cheaply and give it some extra stats, too.
Yeah, 1 to play, 3 to equip, +3/+3, so you've got a 16/16 Flampler.
Yeah.
It's going to get the job done in 2 hits, I would say. Dare I say overkill? Because, like we said, you've already cast Emrakul, and you've already decimated everyone else's lives.
It's going to be okay, but we have to get every single card type in there, or at least as many as possible, so we can churn through and maybe mill them and maybe just get that cost reduction as soon as possible. But we don't want these cards to be dead either. I mean, we're not really playing that battle.
So what about a Planeswalker?
What about Nugan, or New Ugin, Eye of the Storms? He's 7 mana for a 7 loyalty Planeswalker. When you cast it, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors. That's basically all of them that your opponents control. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, your entire deck, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors, the rest of your opponent's decks. +2, you gain 3 life and draw a card, whatever. 0 mana, add colorless, colorless, colorless. It's going to help you ramp to all of your other Eldrazi Titans or whatever you really want, or, Emrakul, there we go, that's the name. Or -11, search your library for a number of colorless non-land cards, any amount that you want, exile them, then shuffle. Till end of turn, you can cast those cards without paying their mana cost. So just cast your entire deck for free.
And if Ugin's still alive, if you went +9, +11, +13, then -11, you get the triggers of casting spells and exiling everything. I mean, that's the closest I've ever seen to win the game.
Yeah. Just cast your entire deck, exile all of the stuff on your opponent's side, every colored permanent. That's all of the...
Absolutely unreasonable card. I mean, this is a Planeswalker, so we're happy to mill it. It's a weird type we don't have a ton of. We have like 4 that exist, and 2 of them suck.
Karns or the Ugins, that's it.
Yeah, a couple of them are kind of clunky, so I'm happy to have a really, really good one that I'm cool milling with a Ghoul-Caller's Bell or a Mesmeric Orb trigger. And then if I get to 7 mana, it's in my hand, I am so happy. This might even be better to cast an Emrakul sometimes. I mean, also just, can you imagine casting Ugin, you tap out for Ugin, right? You go, all right, nothing to play, +2, gain 3, draw a card, and what's that on the top?
Mishra's Bauble?
Mishra's Bauble.
Well, that was a joke.
Mishra's Bauble.
That was a joke. I know you're really into that card. I know we mentioned it at least.
You get to exile something.
At least 3 times this alone. You think
It's
I have
good at
Thoracle on the
everything.
brain? You have Mishra's Bauble on the brain.
Why do you think I love Mishra's Bauble? Because
it's air. Because
it's good at everything.
Because did you know that Mishra's Bauble also exiles a target permanent that's 1 or more colors, provided you have the right setup?
I haven't done this yet, but that is my dream.
You don't even play this card anymore.
I know. I need to get an Ugin. I need to play it because I have so many decks with Mishra's Bauble.
Yeah.
All my decks have Mishra's Bauble in
That
them.
is true. It's just air. But I think the funniest card that you could be putting in here is the fact that, think about it. It's not the card. I'm giving you a little tangent.
Build up.
When you cast Emrakul and you take someone's turn, they get an extra turn after that.
Well, that's lame.
Yeah, if they're not dead, then they get an extra turn.
They get to play Magic?
They could wreak havoc on you. What if they didn't get that instead? Ugin's Nexus says if a player would get an extra turn, they skip it instead. Well, sucks to be you, I guess. But if Ugin's Nexus would be put into a graveyard from the battlefield, instead exile it and you take an extra turn. So if they wipe all the artifacts, then good, you get an extra turn. As long as it's not farewell all modes. And if you're going to be stealing someone's turn, they don't get it instead.
I mean, how much more demoralizing could an Emrakul trigger be? Most of the time, the extra turn doesn't even matter. Like I've had plenty of Emrakuls resolve, and it's devastating for the game, but the game's not over. And that player gets an extra turn. I've never been scared in my entire life of what they could do on that extra turn because it's always like, damage is done, my friend. I mean, feel free to like play another creature or something, but your commander's no longer accessible. You killed everything that I was worried about. You discarded all your good cards. You played all your card draw.
And I know what your hand is.
What's left? I'm really just not that concerned. So adding on top of it that we changed Emrakul into a Mindslaver where they don't get an extra turn, if that's not unfair, I don't even know what is.
I think it's the perfect card for this deck. It's just a cherry on top where it's like, okay, well, it sucks to be you, I guess.
Life's not fair, kid. But if you want life to be a little bit more fair, there's a big old video for you to watch. It's every commander from Final Fantasy graded. Check it out.